Let's start by introducing yourself. Can you share about yourself?
My name is Christine Shaka, and I'm the curator of European art 300 to 1400 CE here at the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore, and also oversee our Ethiopian art collection here at the Walters. And we have one of the largest Ethiopian collections here at the museum outside of Ethiopia. We have about 220 objects. So also under me is Byzantine art and Armenian art and Russian Orthodox art. And so that's how we show it here at the museum in that context. I was exposed to Ethiopian art in graduate school. I took a course on African art, and my professor put slides up about Ethiopian manuscripts on the screen. And I was a medievalist working on European manuscripts from the Middle Ages. And so my mind was completely blown because back in those days, my medieval classes didn't talk about Ethiopian art, but in fact, all these things are happening at the same time. So that kind of opened my mind and got me on, for the next 2 decades studying Ethiopian art, and really grateful to be here at the Walters with an amazing collection to work with, and to be able to present it in a different way, actually, during this Ethiopia at the Crossroads exhibition.
Well, the topic of the exhibition is Ethiopia at the Crossroads, and I just want to ask you, why did you pick that topic? Because why at the crossroad? At the crossroad of what?
Yeah. So when I came up with that title 5 years ago, I was really thinking about its place in the Horn of Africa. And so you have this connection, like I said, across the Red Sea. It's where all these different trade routes and pilgrimage routes kind of come together. It's at the juncture between Africa, Asia, and Europe. I was thinking of Crossroads in that sense. And then as time went on and politics got involved, it started to take on some different sort of meaning, which I never intended. And this was one of the things that I took to my community advisory group. And I said, well, now what do you think about the title? And so they were actually still fine with it. And it's framed from the beginning that it's really about Ethiopia's central place at these roads where everything comes together. All roads meet in Ethiopia. So that's the meaning still today, and not really relating to what's happening in the world, but to what's happened in its past and over many thousands of years, really.
I have been trying to do a research of my own, and I was stumbled upon this exploring stencils and indigenous manuscript tradition in Ethiopia. And at one point, you mentioned that there is a connection between the Western artifacts or art collections in the Ethiopian, or as you said, the Coptic, the Eastern Orthodox artifacts. And can you elaborate on that? What did you find that's so similar between these two?
Sure. Yeah, it's and you're absolutely right. And I think what when I was learning in the beginning about Ethiopian art and in the decades that people were writing about it before, it was often written about by Western scholars. And so they would talk about it from a European perspective. And so this exhibition is really flipping that narrative around and putting Ethiopia at the center. So, and looking at Ethiopia as very connected to all the cultures that surround it. So it wasn't just an isolated place, even going way back to the Aksumite period. It was interacting with, South Arabia across the Red Sea. It had connections with India across the Indian Ocean, up the Nile, obviously to Coptic Egypt, into the Mediterranean. So it's really showing just all these interactions that it had, and not, actually influencing other cultures, just as it was sort of looking at other cultures too, and sort of having this exchange, I would say, between the two. So for me, again, coming from the perspective of learning about European art, I was looking at gospel books, for example, with evangelist portraits made in Germany, for example. The same thing is happening in Ethiopia. And, of course, the styles are very different. But it's the same concept of, you have a book of the Gospels, you want to give it as much beautiful decoration as you can because it's the word of God, right? So it's the same underlying, it's the same, but you're absolutely right. There's different approaches, there are different saints, but also some saints in common. I mean, St. George, right? He's important to many, many, very important to Ethiopia, important to a lot of other Christianities as well. So you're right, there's both the connection, but also a very individual approach as well.
How did you curate the collection of this exhibition? And particularly, you mentioned that you have over 220 artifacts on position for this exhibition. Mm-hmm. How did you came up with all that?
Some of your listeners might actually remember a show that we did 30 years ago called African Zion. And it was really the first exhibition in America to display Ethiopian art in a really big way. But of course, there's a lot more that came out of Ethiopia: Ethiopian Islamic art, Jewish art, art from the south of Ethiopia. So, and then I also had to get a lot of loans for the exhibition because I have no Ethiopian Islamic art, for example. So there are 20 lenders to the exhibition from other places, both from the US, from Europe, and also from Ethiopia as well. So we were really grateful to get about 13 objects, icons, and crosses from the Institute of Ethiopian Studies, which is part of the Addis Ababa University. So you can actually see objects that are typically displayed in Ethiopia here for a short time.
Without blowing the surprise, can you discuss some standout pieces that like visitors can expect when they come to visit?
Yes, of course. My probably favorite piece in the show is it's a processional fan. It's made out of parchment. And so when you open it up, it's several long pieces of parchment. And it's very big. We're going to have it displayed fully extended. But in Ethiopia, the way it would have been used is it would have two boards on each end, and you kind of open it up like a fan. And there's only about 5 or 6 of these that survive. That is kind of my favorite object. And we pulled some of those figures from the fan, and they are on the introduction wall of the exhibition. So that's what people will see very big when they come in to see the show. So we also have in our collection a cloak. It's sort of a velvet cloak with beautiful gold embroidery on it. And it was given to us about 20 years ago. And it was actually a gift from Haile Selassie to a diplomat that he worked with, a U.S. diplomat.
Would you recommend the Ethiopian diaspora here in the DMV area to visit the exhibition? And what do you think that they should expect from this exhibition?
Yeah, I think the exhibition has been a challenge because even though I've been studying this material for a while, and anyone I've spoken to here in the local Ethiopian community, I always say they could have created this show, because this, I show this art to people in the community and they know immediately what they're looking at. They know, they can tell you the figures, they know, where this comes from, all of this sort of thing. And so we have that very informed community, but we also have museum visitors to the Woolters who know nothing about Ethiopian art. So it was hard to kind of, balance those two things. So the exhibition kind of starts with a very big introduction section. So you can learn about the religions in Ethiopia, the writing, the language. You can learn about going way back, the history of the Queen of Sheba, about Lucy. And so you have that kind of introduction section. And then we go into following Ethiopia throughout its history, starting with its connection with South Arabia, going all the way up to Ethiopian contemporary art. So what we've tried to do, and what was very important to me, I've been studying this material, but clearly I'm not Ethiopian. So I have 2 advisory committees. One is a community advisory committee that's about 10, 12 people from the local DMV area. I have Ethiopian Orthodox priests, I have artists, I have business people, I have nurses, I have people just who are really interested in the culture that they grew up with, and all telling me, making sure that I present things in a respectful and appropriate way. And so that has been a real guiding force for me. And we've taken some of those individuals and we've recorded interviews with some of them. So we'll have about 5 iPads throughout the exhibition that will be people from the community talking about their perspective on a particular topic that's shown in the exhibition. So you'll hear the voices from the community. We have some big murals to show some of the sites that you would see if you were in Ethiopia. We have the objects, but you don't have the landscape. You don't have any sort of context if you haven't been to Ethiopia and you're not from there. We also have these wonderful scent cards. So they're kind of a scratch and sniff card where you can smell incense. You can smell what an Ethiopian manuscript smells like, which is very particular. You can smell berbere spice. We're going to have some incredible programming that might be of interest. So on opening day, that's Sunday, December 3rd, we will have art projects for the kids to do. We have a spice workshop. We have a lot of programming coming up that I think will be very appealing to younger groups and also to the whole family. So kind of many generations can, I think, enjoy the exhibition on different levels.
Before I conclude, at the wrap up, is there any final thoughts or message that you'd like to share about the exhibition, about about its impact or anything? Any final thoughts that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're going to see objects that you either, are some distant memory for you, or you haven't seen in a long time, or you've never seen before in the exhibition. And I think, I hope it opens people's minds up to Ethiopia and its real central place in world history, going way, way back. I know for me, I've been to Ethiopia twice now, and it's just every time, it's just the history there is so incredible. So I hope people can absorb that. I hope they're engaged by what they see. The design of the exhibition had a lot of input from the community as well. So we get this beautiful sense of light and color. You actually walk through the colors of the Ethiopian flag as you go through the exhibition. So I hope that people really enjoy that. And I hope that people sort of get Ethiopia sort of top of mind and understand its central place in world history.